Hello and welcome into another episode of Locked On Wolves. Today on the show, three facets of the Timberwolves roster that must improve this season, specific skills for specific players that have to improve if the Wolves are going to get to where they want to go. Plus, ESPN issues the Timberwolves an offseason grade. It's all upcoming. Welcome in. You are Locked On Wolves.
You are Locked On Timberwolves, your daily Minnesota Timberwolves podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome to the Locked On Wolves podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. My name is Ben Beecken. I'm the host of Locked On Wolves. Happy Tuesday, everybody. Hopefully you're having a fantastic week so far. Today on the show, a few things to get to. I want to spend some time looking at three facets of the Timberwolves that must improve this season. What I mean by that is specific skills that specific players have or statistics that took a dip last year that need to get better this year in order for the Wolves to win more than 49 games in the regular season, be better than a 6 seed, and hopefully advance to the finals and win an NBA finals. And you'll see with these numbers, a lot of them are things that were better a couple of years ago and took a little bit of a step back last year for each of these individual players. And I believe that they could lift the Wolves if they just simply, fix some of those individual characteristics that maybe took a step back last season. So we'll get into that. Talk a little bit toward the end about ESPN's offseason grade they gave the Timberwolves as they issued letter grades for everybody in the NBA. I'll take a little bit of issue with the one they give Minnesota. So we'll talk about that here toward the end of the show today. Big thank you off the top for making Locked On Wolves your first listen every single day. Of course, this show is free and available everywhere. That includes YouTube as well as all of your favorite audio platforms. Wherever you'd like to listen to podcasts, you can find Locked On Wolves. You can also watch on the Locked On Sports Minnesota app on both Roku and Amazon Fire TV. Okay, I'm going to focus in on three things today. And let's start with Donte DiVincenzo. Donte DiVincenzo, like to be completely fair, to kind of, level set here, Donte was traded essentially on the eve of training camp with Julius Randle. He was looking forward to playing with, and even though we got a great commercial out of this, looking forward to playing with all the Villanova guys with the Knicks for Tom Thibodeau last year. That, of course, didn't happen at the last minute. He was coming off of a massive postseason run for himself personally, as individually, as well as the Knicks, where he became beloved by Knicks fans, massive shot in the postseason, averaged a ton of points, was a six-man scoring, provided really significant scoring punch off the bench for the Knicks, and was on his way to potentially becoming really a cult hero in New York. Instead, he gets traded to Minnesota, and he ends up on a team that had the sixth man of the year in Reid the year prior, and was going to be asked to initiate more than he was with the Knicks. His role, Donte DiVincenzo with the New York Knicks, was not initiating offense. In fact, it was the lowest assist rate of his career, save for his first 2 seasons in Milwaukee. So going back 5+ years, his lowest assist rate of his career. He had his lowest turnover rate of his career with the Knicks. And to that point, the highest percentage of his shot attempts from outside the arc. He was a catch and shoot guy. He was a flamethrower. He did a little bit inside the arc too. Even though 70% of his shot attempts were threes in his lone season with the Knicks, he took the ball to the basket a little bit. Like, he had some freedom as a scorer off the bench for the Knicks, and it was his best season to date, no questions asked. But it was very much a scoring role, a catch and shoot role, a little bit of creating it for himself off the dribble, but no responsibility to run any offense. He comes to Minnesota, and while technically, like, if you look at play-by-play data or wherever you go, it's going to tell you he didn't play all that much actual point guard with the Timberwolves. He often was on the floor with somebody else that was a point guard, whether it was Mike Conley or Ant was functioning as a point guard at times. But unless he was on the floor with Mike Conley, a lot of the Timberwolves offense was running through Donte DiVincenzo. He was initiating pick and roll. He was, a ball handler in dribble handoff situations. And I think it certainly was a shift for him coming off of his time with the Knicks, and that was a challenge. There's no question about that. And while he was amazing in the preseason, remember, he couldn't miss a three-pointer in the preseason. he started the regular season in a big drought for Minnesota from outside the arc, and he didn't really look comfortable until really January. And briefly, he was added to the starting lineup. And then, of course, shortly thereafter, he hurts his toe against the Warriors, ends up missing like a month, and then, finishes the year strong. But his best stretch was kind of the middle of the season, right before that injury. And we did not see, like, Donte was better with the Knicks than he was with the Timberwolves last year, especially offensively. And I think a big piece of that was because his role was shifted so much from what he did with the Knicks. He was being asked, like, hey, don't just worry about yourself, create for others as well. And he was also being asked to do more defensively, which he did step up and do that. I want to give him his flowers there. DiVincenzo was very good defensively for Minnesota last year. And I thought at times, the Wolves asked him to do too much. And I said this in the playoffs, thought he was being given, like, Donte guarding SGA doesn't make sense to me. Donte guarding some of the guys he was asked to guard really late in the regular season and in the playoffs, I thought he was being overextended a little bit. And obviously losing to Alexander Walker to the Hawks this offseason isn't going to help. But hopefully between Jalen Clark and Terrence Shannon Jr., there's some defensive assignments that can get split up. So Donte doesn't have to exert so much effort and energy defensively. Have a bigger guard, somebody like, Clark's not that much bigger. He's a little bigger, but TJ Shannon, have somebody like that do some of this stuff. DiVincenzo is a really good team defender. And I thought block rate, steal rate, all that stuff was really nice last year. The instincts are great, but allow him to focus his effort and energy on the offensive end, which brings me to the point I really wanted to make. Donte just has to get off the ball more often. He has to play more like Knicks Donte DiVincenzo. Now, he's going to play with Ant, which means, Ant's going to want to play off the ball some too, and I think that's where some of this gets a little sticky. But if Donte's on the floor without Anthony Edwards, he's got to play off the ball a little bit. Maybe the Wolves can run some offense through Reid. Maybe it's with Rob Dillingham, and I'm not going to dig super deep into like lineup data, but with Dillingham and DiVincenzo on the floor together, I think it's pretty limited data anyway. Maybe that's something we'll do another day. But if DiVincenzo can just play more like he did with the Knicks, have more catch and shoot 3-point opportunities. Like, for instance, this year, 85% of Donte DiVincenzo's 3-point attempts were assisted. Last year with the Knicks, it was 92%, or the year prior. So 7% more of his 3-point attempts, almost 1 in 10 more, were assisted. And the year before with the Warriors, it was actually almost 93%. It was only 85.1% last season with the Minnesota. He is a good catch and shoot 3-point, or a really good catch and shoot 3-point shooter, and a good pull-up 3-point shooter. According to NBA.com, DiVincenzo made 36% of his pull-up threes. That's a pretty good number for a pull-up three. But remember, just straight up league average for threes, regardless of play type, is like the 37-ish percentage, between 37 and 38% over the last couple of years. So 36% on pull-ups, well, it's kind of a league averaging number there. DiVincenzo was 38% with the Knicks on pull-up threes, by the way, the year prior, which is a nice number. But he's almost 41% catch and shoot threes at high volume. He was 40.8% catch and shoot this season, right in line with where he was with the Knicks. He was 40.7% catch and shoot with the Knicks. And you just take the overall 3-point percentage, he was just a shade over 40% with New York, just a shade under 40% with Minnesota. He is a good volume 3-point shooter, but just like basically every shooter in the NBA, he's better off the catch than he is off the dribble. He's got to get the ball more often, got to get more catch and shoot 3-point opportunities and impact the Timberwolves offense in that way. And I think he can have a lot of success and improve the Wolves offense that much more. So again, more catch and shoot opportunities, which are, of course, more efficient opportunities, more assisted 3-point chances. And it's also going to contribute to, lower assist rate, but also lower turnover rates for DiVincenzo. Not that those numbers were like, out of control last year for Donte, but his turnover rate with Minnesota was much higher than it was in New York because, again, he was being asked to do more with the ball in his hands than he had been. It still wasn't as high as it was like Milwaukee, Sacramento, Golden State, kind of the middle portion of his career to this point, but a bit of a higher turnover rate than you would expect. I just think Donte can get some of those opportunities off the ball with Rob Dillingham delivering, with Anthony Edwards delivering the basketball, maybe Reid a little bit, maybe Julius Randle. Obviously, Donte and Julius have really good chemistry after playing together with the Knicks, and Randle runs a lot of point forward for the Timberwolves. Chris Finch likes him to do that. So more catch and shoot opportunities for Donte. That's the headline here for what I would be looking for, more off-ball stuff, more like what he did with the Knicks when he was so phenomenal in a New York uniform. So that's what I'm looking for this year out of Donte DiVincenzo that would raise the level of the Timberwolves bench that much more. I want to talk next about an Ant item and a Rudy Gobert item. We'll do all that here next. Today's episode of Locked On Wolves is brought to us by our friends at 5 Hour Energy. Time to fuel up and turn it up with 5 Hour Energy Transfusion. It brings the bold grape, ginger, and lime flavor of your favorite golf drink, minus the alcohol, of course, into a quick, energizing shot. Whether you're sinking birdies or just making memories with friends, this one's a hole-in-one for your energy game. Let's be honest, some days on the course or off of it, you just need that extra boost to stay sharp and energized. I mean, think about it. What's the craziest shot you ever made? Maybe you need that boost to make a crazy shot. Maybe it was a total fluke, but maybe it was just a well-calculated miracle on the course for you. Golf is all about good times with good people and, of course, good flavors as well. The grape, ginger, lime flavor gives you the best parts of your clubhouse go-to without chasing down the Bev cart. If you go to 5hourenergy.com today, that is the number 5hourenergy.com, you can use this promo code LOCKEDONGolf to receive 20% off your order. Again, 5hourenergy.com, the number 5, promo code LOCKEDONGolf to receive 20% off your order. The offer is only valid until September 30th on one order and cannot be used with other promotions. The code is not good on subscription orders. Whether you're meeting up with friends or trying to turn 18 holes into 36, get the energizing boost that you need to power through. Order transfusion-flavored 5-Hour Energy shots today. 5hourenergy.com, the number 5, promo code LOCKEDONGolf to get 20% off your order. Okay, a couple more things I'm keeping an eye out for this season for Minnesota that I think could help raise the level of their play, and I'm going to say specifically on offense, at least for this one, well, the Donte one too. But let's talk about Anthony Edwards and some areas in which I don't want to say he regressed, more stagnated than anything else, in areas that I think he can show growth. Like, again, with Anthony Edwards, it's a bit of a nitpick. Like, he continues to improve. Last season was the best year of his career. He was, once again, all NBA second team. Once again, an all-star, of course. Once again, top 10 in MVP voting. I think he finished 7th each of the last years in MVP voting. So, like, he continues to improve. There's no question about it. So I want to say that first. One area in which he took a slight step backward was the assist rate. And it's funny because I just talked about how Donte needs to get the ball out of his hands more, play away from the ball. Anthony Edwards, when he's got the ball in his hands, as much as the Timberwolves preach him getting off the ball and creating more second side attack opportunities for himself, which he needs to do. I'm not at all saying he shouldn't, but when the ball's in his hands, Anthony Edwards has to improve the assist rate. His assist rate went down almost 4 percentage points this year. It's still the second best of his career, but down after a career high, almost 25% assist rate in 23-24 to just a shade under 21% last year. Down 3.7%. So Ant's got to improve the assist rate. And even with that, the turnover rate ticked up ever so slightly. The usage rate was down a little bit. And again, it's because he generated more catch and shoot opportunities, which is a really good thing. And of course, it helped fuel what was a 40+% three-point shooting percentage until late in the season. Still finished at 39.5%. Led the league in made threes. Incredible accuracy given the volume and the distance with which he shoots his three-point shots. Just impressive stuff. Like the average distance on his shot attempts this year was 16.9 feet, according to Basketball Reference. Now, that's too far because he didn't shoot the ball at the rim enough, which is another like mini piece of, we'll call it criticism. I'll get to here in a minute. But the assist rate needs to continue or it needs to improve. It needs to bounce back a little bit this year. And I think it's more of I think clearly the game has quote unquote slowed down to the extent where we're seeing him make like the dump off passes to the baseline cutter. We're seeing him put on the brakes and kick it out to the perimeter for a 3-point shot. I actually think he has improved there despite what the numbers say, because I think what's dragging the numbers down is these moments where he just chooses to go ISO and tunnel vision, and it doesn't matter what happens. He's just going to do it. Like, that's what he's going to do. He doesn't allow his mind to be changed. And it's a little bit of like Kobe would do this occasionally. Like, of course, there's stars and there's non-stars that do this as well. But it's a dangerous thing that I think And again, I'm nitpicking. He's phenomenal. He got better last year overall. But if he wants to take the next step, it's rather than being like, okay, I'm in playmaking mode or I'm in scoring mode, he needs to be able to toggle that switch on and off on any given possession instead of like for stretches of possessions where I'm not going to look to really pass, at least not in a meaningful way that's going to lead to efficient scoring opportunities, or I am going to pass and I'm going to defer and I'm going to, whatever, I'm going to go stand here and wait for a catch and shoot 3-point opportunity. Both are fine things if you can intermingle the two and it doesn't become the switch is on or it's off. Right? It's up or it's down. Like this is happening one way or it's happening the other way, and there's no in between. I think that there's, again, I'm nitpicking because the upside, of course, the ceiling of Ant being able to figure this out is so high. Along with that, the 3-point rate really made a comeback the latter part of last season. Early in the season, Ant's free throw rate was miserable. It was like in line with his rookie season. It was not good. He wasn't scoring. He wasn't getting to the basket enough. He wasn't attempting enough shots within 3 feet of the rim. It was just too many threes. I shouldn't say too many threes because he wasn't really shooting too many mid-range shots either. It was just like, I want him to shoot the same number of threes he did last year, but basically no mid-range shots unless he has to, and let himself get into the paint more often. And I know he got frustrated with the lack of free throw opportunities. We did see that tick up as the year went on, and we started to see him get a few more calls. And ultimately, his free throw rate was in the neighborhood of where it was 2 years ago. Still too low, but better, and better than the 3 previous years in his career. So still the second best free throw rate we've seen in his career. And the overall volume of opportunities was greater. The ball was in his hands more often. So he ended up only shooting, just again, volume-wise, 10 less free throws last season than he did the year before. He did play in one more game. The percentage was within 0.1% of where it was that year prior. So all of that is fine. Again, nitpicking, if he could just get another free throw attempt per game or ish, like something like that would be such a big difference for Anthony Edwards. If you just want to straight up look at his per game numbers, which is a little bit of a silly way to do it, but it's an easy way to see it. 6.4 free throw attempts per game the year prior to this last one, 6.3 per game this year. But the year before that, his first All-Star season, it was just 5.3 free throw attempts per game, and he was 8 percentage points worse at the line. And guess what? His scoring went up almost 1.5 points from 2 years ago or from 3 years ago to 2 years ago. And then from 2 years ago to last year, it went up another 1.7 points per game. And that was because of the 3-point shot. If he could take another 1 free throw per game jump, free throw attempt per game jump, and stay in the 83 to 84% range, that in and of itself is another, 3/4 of a point to his average without figuring anything else out. So I think there's so much to like about what Anthony Edwards improved this year. Just a little more opportunities at the rim, which will of course lead to a few more free throw opportunities. Something like 1 more per game would be amazing. And really, if you think about it, that's only 1 additional foul at the rim or foul when the team's in the bonus every other game if you're going to get 1 more attempt per game, 1 more free throw attempt per game. That's all it is. It's completely doable, and it's just a matter of picking his spots in a smart way. All right. Last thing I want to do here before I move on to the offseason grade thing is related to Rudy Gobert. Rudy Gobert this last season saw his rebound rate, and we talked about this a little bit in the season review. The rebound rate was far lower than we're used to seeing from Rudy. And I want to talk a little bit about why that's so detrimental, talk a little bit about the Timberwolves overall as a team and their rebounding numbers, and why Rudy could make a really big difference if his rebounding returns to where it has been for so much of his career, including the start of his career in Minnesota. So we'll do that here next. We'll touch on the ESPN offseason grades. We'll do all that here next to close out the show. All right, Rudy Gobert, long been one of the league's best rebounders, hands down. And, you go back and look, a couple years in Utah, his first 2 All-Star years, he led the league in total rebounds. There was 1 year he led the league in defensive rebounds, one of the years that he was the defensive player of the year. Incredible stuff. In fact, to put into context how much less effective his rebounding was last season, and caveats apply. So I'll list all of those caveats here in a moment. In the 2021 season, so the second COVID-shortened season, he had 960 rebounds to lead the league. Last season, he had just 785 rebounds. A very noisy way to look at this, for sure. He actually played in one less game that season when he had 960 rebounds. Just 2 years ago at the Timberwolves, he had 982 rebounds. Did not lead the league, but 982 rebounds. This last year, he had almost 200 less rebounds. He played 4 less games. But again, that's just like volume-wise to look at this. He had 2 years where he had over 1,000 rebounds. And again, last year, the first year he had less than 800 rebounds since a 56-game season in 17-18 when he was hurt. And you'd have to go back to a 61-game season in 15-16. So really, this is the first time since his second year in the league that he played at least 70 games and had less than 800 rebounds. Now, there's a number of reasons or a number of things that would go into that. Part of it is scheme. Part of it is other personnel on the floor. And Julius Randle's not like an all-world rebounder. Neither is Naz Reid, which has been my biggest nitpick with Naz for a long time, is the rebounding comes and goes. The Wolves weren't an especially strong rebounding team overall last year, although they did improve as the year went on, especially in the offensive glass. But they finished 12th in defensive rebounding as a team. They were just a better team, a better team rebounding team, or I don't know. As a team, they rebounded better than any individual. You go down the list, there's a bunch of guys. It feels like they could have rebounded the basketball better. But for Rudy to see a dip, and I just gave you the raw numbers, but like the total rebound rate, 3.3 points lower last year than the year prior. Lowest rebound rate of his career. Defensive rebound rate, 5.4 points lower than the year prior. By far the lowest rebound rate on the defensive glass of his career, 23.8%. His previous low was 27% in 2017-18. So that is 3.2 points lower than his previous career low, which was 7 years ago. Age has something to do with it. Scheme has a little bit to do with it. Personnel has a little bit to do with it. All of the above. And certainly Rudy was on the perimeter more. The Wolves switched. That's one of the easier explanations is Minnesota had him on the perimeter more in switching concepts than probably they would really have wanted to. But he held up pretty well there. It just meant he was drawn away from the rim. And part of that's by design of opponents. Part of an opponent strategy against Minnesota was, can we get Gobert in space? Can we pull him away from the rim so he has no impact as a shot blocker and less of an impact on the glass? And teams did that. For all of the above reasons, and also knew the Timberwolves as a team could be exploited on the glass, period. And Rudy is the Wolves' like only pound for pound plus, I shouldn't say pound for pound, only plus rebounder overall. They've got a couple good rebounding wings and guards that pound for pound are decent, but Rudy's the Wolves' best rebounder by far. And so opposing teams are like, all right, if we get him away from the rim, shot blocking and rebounding, and him in space is better than him at the rim, let's do that. So teams tried to do it. The Wolves said, all right, we think Rudy can hold up more often than not. They kind of obliged, and it worked out okay for the most part. Again, Minnesota was a good defensive team. They finished the year, according to Clean the Glass, 6th in points per 100 possessions defensively. Not the number one by far that they were 2 years ago, but a really good 6th. I think still Rudy could have a little bit more impact on the defensive glass, despite what opposing teams are trying to do to him. The offensive rebounding actually wasn't too bad for Rudy. In fact, it was not far off. In fact, it was better than it was 2 years ago in a Wolves uniform, and better than a couple of seasons in a Jazz uniform as well. He does occasionally get too caught up with just tap outs, which, sometimes are great. Sometimes they lead to fast breaks the other direction for the other team, instead of just trying to get both hands on a rebound and be strong with the ball. I think that's probably the most frustrating thing Rudy does. But all that to say, the defensive rebounding for Rudy, it'd be nice if it came around a little bit next year for Minnesota. And it would also be encouraging if we could see it kind of proven that it wasn't simply because it was his age 32 season. And, Rudy Gobert, who just turned 33 in late June, the very end of June, he's 33 years old now. Like, can he turn it? Can we feel good about this not simply being an age thing? That would also be great. All right. Last thing I want to hit today. ESPN did offseason grades for every team, and all it is a paragraph on each team. I was expecting a little bit more. This is from Kevin Pelton, who normally does a really good job. And overall, I thought these grades were mostly fair. And the way that Pelton went about it was, he says, let's see, my grades aren't just about how much teams improved or declined, but more on how well they use the tools at their disposal, with a focus on free agency and trades because the outcome of the draft is more difficult to predict. Most teams ended up in the fat part of the curve centered on the B range. He said he gave out 2 A's and 1 F, involving teams on the opposite sides of the summer's most lopsided trade. So a lot of B's to go around here. So like, for instance, the Atlanta Hawks get an A. You know why? The New Orleans Pelicans got a, or let's see, who else got an A? There was some, Houston, of course. Houston also got an A. The Pelicans got an F because what were they doing on the draft night, giving up an unprotected 2026 first-round pick? The Timberwolves got a B-. And Pelton says after trading Towns, the Timberwolves were able to manage their payroll to bring back the bulk of the team that has reached the past 2 conference finals. A new contract for Julius Randle means he and Donte DiVincenzo get a combined $43 million, far less than the $53 million, Towns will make with the Knicks. Minnesota did have to let Alexander Walker leave via sign and trade, opting instead to prioritize 23-24 six-man award winner Naz Reid. Reid's 5-year, $125 million contract could be an overpay if he's unable to grow beyond a bench role. Okay, so the reason that the Naz, and I know Pelton knows this, but the reason why the Naz thing's a little bit of an overpay is Minnesota's assuming that at some point in the next 2 to 3 years, Julius Randle will move on. Naz would then become the de facto starter for at least a year or two here moving forward. And so then he will be, if Naz does develop into a legit starter, not just a starter in name, but a starting caliber player in terms of his actual production, if he's given those minutes, then it could be a bargain in 3 to 4 years. Right now, it's a slight overpay for a guy whose cap on minutes is limited based on the roster and the fact that he's not going to start over Julius Randle or Rudy Gobert. It's a bit also of an insurance policy against like, hey, we want to play big. We need 3 really good bigs. We're going to pay our 3 really good bigs a lot of money. The fact that the Wolves were able to keep 2 of the 3 of Randle, Naz, and Alexander Walker is a really good thing. And I thought Minnesota managed their draft assets well also. I would give Minnesota a solid B. I don't know why it needs to be a B-. I feel like given what they were tasked with, and you go back a year and it looked like the second apron was going to be completely unavoidable. And as much as I didn't love the Karl-Anthony Towns, Julius Randle trade, it's worked out pretty well for both teams. And Minnesota didn't have to worry about the second apron stuff as much. It was kind of all solved for them last September when that trade was made. So all that to say, like, I think it's a solid B. I don't know what else they could really have done better. And, whatever they do at their final couple roster spots and final 2-way spot is not necessarily going to influence their overall off-season grade unless they sign somebody who then ends up having a major impact later in the season that we're just not seeing coming. A lot of B's to go around. Thunder get a B+, Magic B. I thought there was one other A. The Kings got a D+, which is, Kings doing Kings stuff. Really good. So all that to say, it's fair. I get it. The Wolves did not get clearly better, but they obviously did not, or they did not get obviously worse. It just depends on, as we said many times, how TJ Shannon and Jalen Clark and Rob Dillingham can backfill the vacated Nickeil Alexander-Walker minutes. That's what it's all going to come down to. Ant should be better. Jaden McDaniels should be better. They'll be healthier as a team. All that stuff is encouraging. And the Wolves were better than a 49-win team last year. So we talked a little over-under when those came out a few weeks ago. We'll get back to that for sure. Later this week, I do want to get into the Locked On NBA Top 100 list. I'll talk about who I voted for, Timberwolves players who I think will be on this list. The list isn't out yet, but I want to kind of tease that a bit later this week. And we're still waiting with bated breath for more roster news for the Wolves. So lots of stuff to cover here yet this week on the show. We are still daily, Monday through Friday. A big thank you for making Locked On Wolves your first listen every single day. Of course, this show is free and available everywhere. That includes YouTube as well as all of your favorite audio platforms. Wherever you like to listen to podcasts, you can find Locked On Wolves. You can also watch on the Locked On Sports Minnesota app on both Roku and Amazon Fire TV. A reminder that for your second listen, you can check out the Locked On NBA podcast, where there is, of course, no offseason. Doug, Matt, and Hayes will keep you up to date on contract negotiations, rumors, and everything you need to be the most informed NBA fan. Find Locked On NBA on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Of course, this show is also part of that very same Locked On Network, your local experts on all the biggest stories. Once again, I'm Ben Beecken. This is the Locked On Wolves podcast. We'll catch you next time.